Someone once asked me what universe this was. A strange question that stuck with me all these years later. All I could say for sure was it was the only one I knew of. And that was as true then as it is now.
SPIDER-NOIR is refreshing, to say the least. Hello there, people. Ibrahim here, and today I'm here to talk about a show that gets into the later years of a broken-down private investigator who tries his hardest to leave his former life as a protector of New York City, the Spider, while facing a mystery that involves the rise of superpowered beings in 1930s New York. Before I can get deep into this review, I would like to clarify that I haven't fully delved into his comic book version, which, from what I know, is vastly different in characterization and lore. This version of our not-so-friendly neighborhood webhead is a private and a jack, while the 2009 original version of SPIDER-NOIR is a crime-fighting socialist that is ready to face the corrupt elite of New York City. While both noirs share a similar landscape, the comic version is a lot more mature in nature. But I feel like that's why I personally adore both versions, because this show and the comic are both true examples of the never-ending potential of this medium. It's different and very inspired by another version of the webhead. Yep, you heard it from me. The people behind the show were definitely inspired by the classic Sam Raimi trilogy from the 2000s, and you can tell from the score, they clearly took a lot of essence from the Raimi trilogy. Not from just the score, you can see it from the way that SPIDER-NOIR web swings. It's also as, like, dynamic as Toby's with the camera movement. Then there's also the briefcases with this hidden Spider-Man suit after retiring from that role, but then eventually coming back to it. Then there's also the way that their masks are torn up. Overall, it's just wonderful work around, and you get to see how much passion these creators behind SPIDER-NOIR really care about their own interpretation of the character, while also honoring the past of this character, while having their own spin on Stan Lee and Steve Ditko's work on Spider-Man. This usually teenager kid turned hero was something that was odd back in the day, but ever since Spider-Man, it kind of became the norm. A sidekick turned main star, and I feel like this SPIDER-NOIR is a reversal of that. And I understand that there are many versions of Spider-Man that are older and wiser, but this version is way different. He's tired, he's exhausted from this job, and he kind of just does it for the thrill. But deep down, in his heart of hearts, he's a hero. And while he likes to admit it or not, he is the one and only Spider of this universe, of course. While there's also other interpretations of noir, of course, from the beloved Spider-Verse movies, which also is probably the main inspiration for this version of SPIDER-NOIR, as again, it's very different from the original 2009 version of the character. But speaking of characters, I want to talk about how all of them, well, not all of them actually, most of them are really good and they're really engaging, and I think they really vindicate my review for this show. So let's start off with Nicolas Cage as the Spider, Ben Reilly. As you can tell, he's not Peter Parker. And as much as of a weird change that is, it makes sense, honestly, with how they tell the story and how they explain why that's his name. And his interpretation of this version of Spider-Noir is just chef's kiss. It's perfect. Perfect, everything down to the last minute details. It's just so expressive. He's so expressive, and he's explained in interviews how he's a mix of Humphrey Bogart and Bugs Bunny, and you kind of see it in his performance. He's so goofy, but at the same time, he's this hard-boiled detective. And his mannerisms as the spider, oh my gosh, he acts like a spider too in these little bits and scenes. And this is a show where Nicolas Cage's acting really shines, and you can tell how much fun he's having by playing this character from every scene he's in. And the way that he talks is so... He has this really cool accent that you kind of tend to want to speak in because, man, he is just that cool. And honestly, what shines the most for his character, for me, is the spider. The spider is a completely different vibe compared to Ben Reilly. While Ben Reilly is kind of this ass of a character, the spider is this guy who's obviously like having fun. The way that he quips makes me get reminded of like usual Spider-Man, but in this very old style of speaking, and it's just so classy and so fun to listen to. It's not the same as how Spider-Noir quips in Spider-Verse, but it's just so nice to hear a Spider-Man quip. Because I feel like that's one of the more fun parts about Spider-Man is he likes to chat while he's fighting his enemies. The way that his powers are in this universe too is just great. The way that they're explained is amazing. If I'm being honest, I might prefer the way that his origin is in how the spider powers were received in this version of Spider-Noir rather than the comics. Up next, we have Legion Lee's Felicia Hardy, or Cat Hardy as she's mostly called in the show. This is our first live-action Black Cat, besides the one Felicia Hardy scene in, cutscene, I think, in The Amazing Spider-Man 2. And honestly, she's just a captivating femme fatale. She's an amazing counterpart to Nicolas Cage's Ben Reilly, and their dynamic is just capturing you, like how Black Cat steals diamonds so easily. Legion Lee captures you in her performance, and her singing voice is amazing. I swear, when you watch her sing in the show, it's just captivating. You'll understand why Ben Reilly's so mesmerized with her, and her plotline with Jack Houston's Sandman is just amazing, and it creates this love triangle for the story that captivates you. It's like, who will Cat Hardy choose in the end? Would it be Ben Reilly, or would it be her true lover in Flint Marko? She gives you this strong presence, and you kind of get to see like a part of her that really wants to be something else that Silvermane doesn't want her to be, and it really attaches you to the character, and you really root for her to get out of her captor's grasp and to be free and to be who she is and to no longer just be Silvermane's personal girl and to finally be free from all of it. Now, speaking about Silvermane, he is played by Brendan Gleeson, and he's a very, very good antagonist for a neo-noir like Spider-Noir. It's just great to have someone like a crime boss to be as a villain for a show like this. And in the Spider-Noir comics, I'm pretty sure that mafia boss figurehead is Norman Osborn's the Goblin. But in this show, they decided to go for Silvermane because this character doesn't really have a definitive live action version of him. So they really took their own spin on the character. And personally, I really like how they did Silvermane. I do think that the other villains are more captivating because they have a lot more personality, in my opinion. But don't get me wrong, I really enjoyed Silvermane. He's genuinely a great contrast to Ben Reilly and Cat Hardy mainly. And the way that he has control over New York is really showing the corruption of this era of New York. And it really builds upon the world and makes you wonder how long has he had a grasp on an iconic city like New York. Now, time to get to the other villains. We got Tombstone, who I personally liked. He's kind of the one that's not really dealt properly, in my opinion. He has this very nice arc, and I think it's very heartwarming, and I think it's a good send-off for the character, but I kind of wished he had more screen time, and it's just unfortunate because I personally appreciate Tombstone from all the stuff I've seen, from the Insomniac Spider-Man games, from the Spectacular Spider-Man, and from Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man. This is a very different take on Lincoln, but still, I'll take it. He's very, very warmer compared to the other villains. You get to warm up to him more, and you kind of get to see that this isn't really who he is, and he's kind of just a guy who wants to get by after the war, and you really get to sympathize with him, and you kind of get this feeling that you want more from him. Then we got Sandman, Flint Marko. He is very different from his comic version and from his other film adaptations of him. He's not the tragic father who wants to do bad things just so he can do good for his family. He's more so just this tragic lover for Cat Hardy, and the way that their romance is very upsetting because you can tell that Flint does not want his powers. He really just wants a normal life, and to him, the only way that he could have that normal life or to live his life in the fullest is to work with Silvermane and to ensure that Tombstone also works with Silvermane because they're both war buddies in the show. It's just something that really makes you empathize with this version of Flint Marko, even if he's a lot more different. Then we got Megawatt. He's a niche character that I did not know of until this show, but he is very captivating. He quotes a lot of scripture and a lot of Broadway plays, and he's such a fun character, and his powers are definitely the most dynamic out of all the villains, considering two of the superpowered villains are kind of just, strong men and very durable men. But Megawatt, he cranks up all this villain up to an 11, and he's basically just a captivating person on screen. Whenever he's on screen, he's this annoying little rascal that you want to beat the hell out of because he's such a grievance to our characters, and it kind of hurts to listen to him, but in a way that is enjoyable. And he's personally my favorite out of all the villains in this show, and I hope we get to see more of someone like that in a possible season 2. But let's get into the MVPs of this show, which are Ben Reilly's associates. I love them so much whenever they're on screen. They're just lovely. We got Karen Rodriguez as Janet Ruiz. She plays Ben's secretary, Janet, and she's just a highlight overall. And what I mean by that is just she's very loyal to Ben, and not only that, she's basically a very strong and independent woman character, just like Cat Hardy, in a 1930s New York, which is rare, but it's something that you can appreciate for a character like that. And she has this kind of very motherly dynamic with a kid named Frankie, and their scenes are also just fun. Frankie's also an MVP. Shout out to him. He's a very fun character, and he genuinely helps around with the plot, and he has this very funny accent. But continuing with Janet, she's just personally my favorite out of all the supporting characters. How captivating and enjoyable her presence is on screen. Like, whenever she's on scene, I'm very locked in. And again, you just have to watch the show to see what I mean with how fun she is and how you appreciate her as a character and as a person. So shout out to Karen Rodriguez for being my favorite supporting actress. Now, last but not the least, we got Lamorne Morris as Robbie Robertson. Now, he is not the Robbie that we all know. He's a lot more younger, he's snappier, and he's basically Ben's personal journalist, but he's also one of the few people who knows he's the Spider, or formerly the Spider. And their dynamic is very, very, very captivating. Like, you can tell that Robbie has his own goals, and along the way he also wants to help Ben while also helping himself. Like, at the end of the day, it's a double win situation to him and a singular win for Ben. And that is such a fun thing to see, because we got these two characters with a common enemy, but they have their individual goals with that certain enemy, who is Silvermane. He's also just a very kind-hearted man, and you can see that when he's trying to fight for the truth about these superpowered individuals, and how he does not want any misinformation, and how even when he's dealt a bad hand, that offends him because he wants to protect the values of being a journalist. Because obviously with New York like this, with corrupt politicians like Mayor Morris and a fucking corrupt mob boss like Silvermane, he has to ensure that the truth gets out there no matter what, and he'll stop at nothing to fight for it. And he is genuinely a great character. You love to see him, because no matter what, he will captivate you just as much as Janet, even though I do prefer Janet a lot more. It's also nice to see a journalist fight for the truth. Obviously, that's part of the code, and it's just very great to have a journalist in a show like this, because who doesn't like having to fight for truth, justice, and a better tomorrow? Yes, I will find any way to sneak my superhero in any form of media. Now, it's time to talk about the show in general. So this is just all in one, so spoilers beware. This show, from episode 1 to 8, amazing. Peak television. I personally enjoyed this a lot more than The Boys, and as much as that hurts me, it's definitely one of my favorite shows in comic book media this year. Now, you may ask me why. Well, obviously, I appreciate the Raimi essence of it, as I talked about it earlier. The music is just amazing. The intro sequence is just something you can never get out of your head. Like, I occasionally sing it every now and then. So shout out to Kirby for singing an amazing intro sequence for this wonderful show. The way that the fight scenes are also like created is also fun. It's also very brawler-ish, because Ben Reilly is old and he's not as ready to go as Peter. But besides that, the plot of this show is about Silvermane and how he forms this group of superpowered individuals, and how because of it, Ben Reilly has to get back out there and become the Spider again, even if he's reluctant to. And along the way, we get Robbie and Janet helping him out with all the situations going around New York, whether it be with our superpowered villains, or whether it be with the mafia, and how it affects characters like Janet and Ben with their office situation. The show is just really well written too. The dialogue is amazing. You can never, ever, ever have a moment of boredom in this show. Like, genuinely. It's, I think, one of the shows I'll recommend to even the most TikTok rotted of people. Now, obviously, it may be a little hypocritical of me because every now and then I do tend to doom scroll. But at the end of the day, I think it's also important to protect media literacy. But besides that, we also just get this reveal that yes, Ben Riley is a version of Peter Parker. Like the only reason that we don't get to hear the name Peter Parker in the show is because they legally cannot use that because of the terms and conditions that Sony has for Peter Parker Spider-Man. Like, Peter can't drink, Peter can't smoke, and Peter can't do these specific things that Ben does. We do get a nod to it in one of the scenes where Ben is trying to get his suit back, but his old apartment is already taken by a couple, and he calls himself Pete from Maintenance. So that's the only mention that we ever get of the name Peter or Pete in the show. So I hope that kind of tells you that yes, this is a version of Peter Parker nonetheless, even if he took the clone counterpart's name, which was taken from Uncle Ben and Aunt May's maiden name. As for the flashback sequences, I genuinely love them. They are great. Seeing a young Nicolas Cage is something that is really good de-aging, honestly. He looks like an older version of himself from Ghost Rider. And it's just nice to see a young Nick Cage in a way, but also just the way that he gets his powers. Compared to the Spider Totem, I like that he gets it from Man Spider. Because there was this German camp that was experimenting on these humans, and that's why we get these superpowered individuals. And Ben is a very special one, as he is one of the not one of the only few. He is the only one that was bitten, and the powers of the man spider went to Ben, and that's why we get the spider, who is always ready to fight crime. That camp also elaborates on how the other superpowered individuals got their powers. I forgot to mention him earlier, but we did get Molten Man. He's just a brief character in episode 1, but he's kind of the one that pushed this plot to the direction it went, because Cat Hardy was the one to hire him to burn down Silvermane's mansion. And yes, so basically we got superpowered individuals who started the whole shebang again. I personally liked a lot of scenes in this show. Like, there's so many standouts, but I'll list the 2 that have been stuck in my mind every single day, and that's the episode 6 nightmare sequence. I love seeing that shit. I loved it in Far From Home. I'm gonna love it here. It's so great. It's such a great use of the budget, and to see the Spider and Ben Riley interacting in a scene together is very cool to see in live action. As for my other favorite scene, the bar fight, as it plays Sway in the background. That is so cool, man. The way that Ben carried himself like he's a drunken Spider-Man. And the way that he fights is so fun. And the way that he quips in that fight is so fun. And the music fits alongside it. And the moment that he started chuckling after he was down and out and he got back up to beat these people who were making fun of his alter ego identity was such a liberating and such a adrenaline rush moment. It's just amazing, man. It's just genuinely one of those few things that you tend to appreciate in media like this. Like, as soon as that scene was over, when he snapped his fingers and he was like, sha sha sha. Did you see that? I really like that. And that's why I genuinely love this show. It's genuinely one of the most standout scenes ever. But the colored version's also good too. I saw the final episode in both black and white and in the true hue. Seeing that hero shot of him walking out of his fight against Megawatt and Sandman, his mask torn apart like Toby's, and the red and blue light shining upon him with like the classic Spider-Man colors is such a cool detail in the true hue. But it's also cool in black and white because it's a lot more authentic to the character. Overall, I think the show can be enjoyed in both black and white and true hue, but if you had to ask me, I'm a person who personally enjoyed the black and white more as much as the true hue has so many beautiful shots. Like the colors in that is genuinely what comic book media should strive for. And in general, I feel like comic book media should genuinely try to strive for different mediums. That's why I am very much looking forward to something like Clayface, which is releasing in October later this year. Overall, the plot of the show is just great. You know, it all pieces together. You start thinking about how the superhuman plot fits in with the Silvermane plot, and how Cat Hardy was the one who started all of this with Molten Man, and then she turned out to be the Rat. That was very cool. The finale is also great. It was very tense. And we got Robbie to don the Spider-Noir suit just to convince Silvermane that Ben was not Spider-Noir. That shit was amazing. You genuinely love to see it from Robbie. And Janet being the one to carry the antidotes all the way there, while it may have been a decision that turned out for the worst, that was very smart of her to keep it with her to ensure that it doesn't get into the wrong hands, even though it eventually did. But we got a sequence of Ben being cool as the Spider. Genuinely, whenever the Spider's on scene, it's just amazing. You gotta love Nick Cage for it. This is why I genuinely hope for a season 2. This video is just me pleading for a season 2, if I'm being honest, because I just want to see more of it. But as we get to the closing sections of this video, I will be reading each of my friends' reviews. They have been kind enough to join me during this watch party, and so we will start with Grizel's. It was pretty good, but the black and white was miles better than the colored version, in my opinion. I noticed a somewhat weird-looking yellow thing on Megawatt's face in the colored version. Maybe it's just my preference. It honestly looked better in black and white because the atmosphere fit better too. The colored version looked too modern, considering the old-timey nature of it. I also really like that they didn't hold off on the violence. There were more scenes that were somewhat not for kids, because they were maybe too violent, but I really loved those. Overall, it's a good 9 out of 10 for me, but maybe a 7 out of 10 if it were the colored version. Up next is G Heretic's review. Spider-Noir is an honest-to-God 10 out of 10 for me. The cast was perfect and the characterizations are done well. The actors give it their all, and I'm proud to say it's my favorite Spider-Man media to date. My biggest nitpick is the explanation on their powers. For Ben and Megawatt, I get it, but when it comes to Sandman and Addison, I was confused. My biggest like is definitely the performance of each character. For the performance, it might be glazing, but definitely Nick Cage. I just feel like I like the way he acts. The Nick Cage improv and the subtle mannerisms as Ben make the character better. After that, we have Dosey's review. I'm pretty new to Spider-Noir, but it only took a few episodes to get me hooked. It's so cool seeing a fresh, older take on Spider-Man as a 1930s detective. The old vintage vibe is awesome, and the fight scenes with different villains, powers or not, are seriously fun to watch. I rate it 9 out of 10. And the last review is from The Jester. I really like the act of weakness and humanity shown in Spider-Noir. He didn't seem like an all-powers-pulled superhero, which was nice because it showed more humanity. I don't know what I didn't like really. Overall, I rated an 8.7 out of 10. We arrive at the end point. Thus, I will give my conclusion and TLDR review of Spider-Noir. This show brought me back to the highs of the Raimi trilogy. Each episode got better and better, and it didn't stop improving in its writing and acting. This show may not be for everyone, especially the die-hard OG 2009 Socialist Spider-Noir fans. But I personally believe both versions are equally great in their respective worlds. Besides the difference in adaptation, the show does suffer in some of the visual effects, as it is limited, but with the amazing cinematography and direction, Overall, it can be easily overlooked. All the characters shine in their own episodes, while the main character Ben Reilly gets to shine bright with Nick Cage's signature crazed acting style. With highlight villains, fun action, and classic noir tropes, this show shines its true hue in a not-so-black and white world. This show is a blast to the past and deserves a 9.7 out of 10. In today's story, we see some of our heroes drink, smoke, or swear. But we must maintain proper etiquette and avoid overdoing them. Remember to stay active and hydrated, y'all.
Until we meet again!